in that rebellion. Appreciate your efforts in trying to get my sentence modified and get me released from this prison. And uh, I can't express, my gratitude. I can't really express, how grateful I am for all the effort and the time that y'all done put forth in in trying to get me and my co-defendant released. That being said, because I have become a symbol of condemnation for the state of Indiana, it's going to take more than just a documentary or a film, you know, and what occurred on that particular day to get me up out of here. We're going to probably have to protest and really petition the court on numerous occasions to get them to change their mind about letting me go. And so for all of those who's willing to stay the course and participate in my release, thank you.
And again, that was John Balagoon Cole, sentenced to 84 years. And just before him, that was Christopher Naeem Trotter, sentenced to 142 years, simply for standing up to defend the lives of other inmates, and they are the Pendleton 2. I just want to note, we're about to introduce our panel, but in a little bit here, maybe 15 or so minutes, we also are going to be joined by Minka Bektimba, who, for all of us who were just watching the documentary, was a participant in the 85 uprising, but of course was there in the film, The Pendleton 2, They Stood Up. So as we move into our discussion here, I'm very happy to be joined by Dr. Jared Ball, professor of communication studies, Morgan State University, author of The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power. Also, I Mix What I Like. Too Black, who's a communications representative for the Defense Committee to Free the Pendleton 2, host of the Black Miss podcast, and also a director and producer of the film we just saw. And the King Trill community organizer, musician, director of the Pendleton 2, They Stood Up, also a producer, also the narrator, did a lot of work on this film, and hopefully people go take a look at the credits and the YouTube score there as a group effort, as I know you noted, Black, in the chat. But thank you all so much for joining us here. It's a discussion too, so I don't have to ask all the questions, but maybe I'll throw out a few to get started. King, it is a powerful movie, and we talked a little bit about this last week when we showed the trailer. Just a powerful story, and I wonder, just after this, having you've done the movie, you've shown it, you've looked at it so many times after the premiere, what you're really sitting with about these two brothers and the struggle they're in and the struggle to free them.
What the question was, what I'm really sitting with, you said?
Yeah,
what was
the wake of this premiere. Yeah, please.
I'm just really going through a lot of emotions, but the most important thing, and the thing that I want to keep everybody's eyes focused on, is that these men have been suffering for almost 40 years in prison. John Cole Balagoon's been there for over 40 years. They've been attacked, they've been persecuted, they've been traumatized, they've been brutalized, everything under the sun. And they have been given, the state of Indiana has been given a pass to continue on this brutality. Even to this present day, they want to punish them for standing up against this cruel system. And I just want to implore people to please work with us, come together, so we can go forward and bring these brothers home to the remaining family they have, where they belong.
Black, one of the things that I was watching the chat during the film that you mentioned, that you said always sort of strikes you, is the determination of both of these brothers to continue fighting. And I was hoping you could just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, even in editing it, I think particularly with that solitary section, because that was probably the toughest one, honestly, out of all of them. But part of what we all wanted to emphasize, me, King, everybody, was you know, the organizing and the fact that they kept going. Like, so even while they're in solitary confinement, they're doing a hunger strike. You know, they're trying to. There's some stuff that's not even in the film. They're helping get other people out of prison. They do jailhouse lawyer work. Balagoon was telling me the other day how they used to play chess. They couldn't get out of their cell, so they would shout out the chess number, all right, to people in the other cell, and they would move the chess pieces in their own cell, right? Like, so they always built community because they understood that was the only way they were going to get through it, right? Like they want to isolate you, right? Clearly you see that they want to isolate you, they want to torture you, they want you to lose your mind. And, you know, as Naeem said, you know, he refuses to give them that. And I just think that for all the suffering that is told, and I think we definitely need to talk about that, but they still have some kind of inspiration. They still believe in the bigger cause. They, you know, King can speak to it. They always tell us that this case is bigger than them. You know, they don't want us to just talk about it from the standpoint of their case, right? So I think that's my main takeaway. I mean, I've watched this stuff, you know, we both watched this stuff a million times, right? So you never get numb to it, but it does help you get to deeper layers once you watched it so many times. Like you're beyond the shock, and you start to really respect them on a level that, you know, I don't know if I've had that kind of respect for people. You know, like, as I've always said, it's one thing to read about the revolutionaries in the past or something of that nature, but when you actually speak to them and you're, you know, sitting sitting there listening to them, you know, on the phone or wherever, like that just hits you differently. So I think that's something that people, as they're probably processing a lot of trauma that by listening to that, definitely need to also respect the fact that, you know, these men still have will. You know, they still believe in the bigger cause that they fought for, and they're at peace with that, even if they're not at peace with being in prison.
And, you know, Jared, I mean, I'm certainly curious anything you have to say or anything you want to pose. But one thing I've been thinking about in the course of this is I mean, the fact that they were doing all of this prison organizing, you know, Black just brought it up. I mean, they're getting people out of prison. They're doing all these things. They have an organization, the Black Dragons. I mean, all this, I mean, some of it's history, some of it's contemporary, but, you know, it's not told. It's not written about. It's not known. I mean, I'm so grateful, you know, to Two Black for even bringing this to me. I'd never heard of it. And I don't know where I'm going with that, Jared, but it was something that it really has been weighing on me is that aspect of it.
Well, first of all, for me, what Black you just said, the shock is setting in. Seeing this for the first time myself, and it is like you said, it's one thing to hear the stories, similar stories, to even talk to other people who've had similar experiences, or to read the histories. But this is very shocking. So for you to have been that close and helping put this together, I commend the both of you. And your whole crew for that work. And big shout out to those brothers for that work and what they did and what they continue to do. I mean, that is incredibly inspirational. You know, one of the things I did think of, and I beg everybody's pardon for my dog in the background, but was there were two things that I did think of, though, in terms of some of the histories that I know we all talk about. So even before let me just first of all shout out to Breakthrough, to BPM, to this collaboration, again, to the production of this video, to the support for these kinds of stories that never get told in favor of really nonsensical fantasies that we get. But the two things that I thought of really were again, the thing we talked about a number of occasions when Schwarzenegger signed a death warrant on Tukey Williams, simply because he had expressed affinity for the politics of George Jackson and Assata Shakur and Malcolm X and things like that. And then Rochelle McGee, currently still locked up, who is sitting there in a courtroom one day, and Jonathan Jackson busts in and offers a similar level of solidarity. And, you know, what do you do in that moment? And on the flip side, those brothers deciding in that moment, we're going to stand with these others and show solidarity, even as I'm looking at, he's saying 3.5 years to his own release, to other people maybe not having to be in that level of risk. Anyway, I'm rambling myself, but it's an incredibly inspiring story. So thanks to all of you for bringing it to everyone's attention at this level, and anything else that we can do to help spread the word is at a minimum absolutely necessary and to be done. So thank you.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really is. And I mean, this is, I mean, how the film starts even, you know, and counterposing. And I think, King, you asking the question to yourself, you know, about the George Floyd, like, what would you do? I think a lot of us have asked, you know, that question in the course of so many things and things we've seen, you know, and I think that's the other thing is so much brutality is put in front of us, and it's easy. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to look the other way, you know, but it's hard to stand up and do something when you're at risk. And it just, I don't even know where I'm going with it, but the level of inspiration that I think comes from this story really is, it shows that, you know, it's not like revolutionary activity, radical activity is not really like a superhero type of thing. You know, I mean, it really is coming from this deep feeling of love. I think it was Balagoon who says in the film, you know, like, how could I say I love you and I stand for you and I wouldn't do anything to save your life? And that to me was profound. I mean, I just thought, wow, like, I mean, Che Guevara said it, right? Like, a true revolutionary is really motivated by great feelings of love. But what does that mean? You know, we read it in the book, and it was powerful there. So I'm not even really directing the question at anybody, but you know, if anyone wants to go off that, I mean, that's just a big reflection I had. King, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, King, take that.
You know, I really, I mean, like you said initially about the George Floyd situation. I was watching the George Floyd trial, and I saw the witnesses take the stand. And the witnesses took the stand, and they were saying that they couldn't sleep, that they felt incredible guilt, that they contemplated suicide, that, you know, their life has been forever changed and forever traumatized because they watched somebody smile in their face while they killed another human being. They are forever changed and forever affected by that. So then when I discovered this story of Balagoon and Naeem, and seeing how they responded in the face, they knew that they could die. The one wrong move, they were gone. They would be murdered in cold blood, and nobody would say anything about it. But they stood on their bravery. They stood on courage. They stood on camaraderie, and they insisted upon saving their life. They was about to be released from prison. They were about to be released and go home, but they could not stand there knowing this constant abuse, knowing this constant violence. They couldn't stand there and let a friend of theirs get murdered. And I think we have to adopt on some level the same philosophy, you know, because we are out here. We know about this brutality. I did 15 years in prison myself. I've been in the hole. I've been brutalized by police officers, by COs. I've been through the whole process myself. So I know these things are the truth. That's why I'm speaking out so vehemently. And I am urging and imploring everyone, we have to come together and bring the relief that these brothers deserve for showing this extraordinary amount of courage and perseverance.
Black, before you jump in, if you don't mind, I wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit about what I thought was a fascinating part of this story was as what we've just heard there, the thin line between offense and defense. That is that whole point about we took a portion of the prison over only to survive. It was the only that offensive move was the only thing we had as a defensive tactic. Similar to what again what just was said about the defense of George Floyd or the lack thereof, and that they did it in prison too is that much more crazy. I mean, in terms of the comparison to the Floyd piece, but could you, in addition to whatever you were going to say, could maybe add a little bit about that thin line about where we often find ourselves between offense and defense?
Yeah, well, I think that's where the Black Dragons point is important, and that honestly got put in kind of late, but we felt like we needed to emphasize that because that gives you some backdrop. And for people who may have not seen the film or didn't catch that part, the Black Dragons was an organization that the prisoners had formed. We can give you a little more backstory on that, but prisoners had formed because they were dealing with, you know, racists, as they found out later, you know, KKK guards, and they needed to, you know, have means of protecting themselves and also mutual aid and taking care of each other. And, you know, there's a love and a brotherhood there, right? So when you think about that existing, the idea of Big R, who's a great storyteller, by the way, to, you know, shout out like, yo, they're killing us down here. And everybody shouts, yo, they're killing us down here. And then that gets down to, you know, Kevin Murphy, you know, who then shares that with other people. And then that makes word back to Balagoon, and he goes back, gets Naeem, and brings other people on like Minka, who will be on soon. And they go to investigate to say what's going on. Like, why are you doing this to Lincoln Love, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's a level of organization that you have to do that. So on the outside, we're often not organized in that capacity. So when somebody's getting beat down, we don't have anybody to call like that. You know, we really don't. Like, we're just kind of as an individual in the situation, like, well, should I do something? I don't know if I could call 5 people who would come to the scene, right? Like, I don't have that, right? But they had that, right? So it's easier to then go confront them, get chased, have to fight your way out, stab people, et cetera, take hostages, still be able to come up with demands, still be able to protect the guards. And because, again, nobody was killed in this case. And this is not to, you know, appeal to some, you know, generic type of innocence. It's just to say that that's also a level of organization, because they put them, the guards or the hostages, in a cell and had other inmates protect them, you know, because they also understood that if they didn't, I mean, we make slight reference to Attica. Like, we saw what happened once that one person died in Attica, even though they died very late in the process, you know, they shot up everybody, including the guards themselves. You know, like I'm talking about, the state of New York did that, right? So I think the offense is in the fact that they were doing work prior, and that they had a bond and a love for each other prior. That I think if we had more of that on the outside, we would see more people throw a brick at Derek Chauvin. You know, we would see more people step in and do that, because, you know, people have your back. But I think often the reason why a lot of us don't want to do these things, we don't know if anybody has our back. We don't know if we do that, is anybody else going to really be there with us, or are we just going to go out, just, you know, we lose our family and there's no support. So that's why, you know, coming back to King, that's why we have to support them. That's why we have to fight to get them out. Because when people take these kind of risks, you have to have their back, because it sends a message to the rest of us that if we want to stand up like that, people will have our back too. And if we don't stand up, then it sends a message that we don't, and it quells rebellion. It quells any kind of, you know, disruption, you know, from the people at the bottom.
And on that note, I want to note that we do have with us Mr. Minka Bektemba. I think King is going to come back with us in just a little bit, and we're going to bring on Mr. Bektemba here, who is a. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I'm the one who's supposed to go.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah,
my apologies. Black is going to drop off real quick. We're going to bring on Mr. Bektemba. Black will be back, and we're going to talk, of course, before we close, about what everybody can do. So make sure you don't go anywhere, and please share this stream so that people can follow what we are doing here. But we're going to bring on. Take a little straight here, Mr. Bektemba. Thank you so much for being with us.
How y'all doing? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Yes, sir. Let me ask you this just to start. I mean, what would it mean for you to see the Pendleton 2 go free after all these years?
I'm just sitting here listening to y'all, and you know, I'm flashing back, and you know, it would be the most, man. You know, the trauma and the violence, you know, the tendency goes on. I mean, I did 16 years in it, but this is nothing compared to what they're going through, you know, and the repercussions for that situation. You know, from the beginning, they put us in the hole from that. You know, I just can't fathom, man, what they're going through. And so, I mean, they're still alive, still strong. You know, it's just you know, it's their character, man. That's them. That's the persons I knew, you know, back in 1985, 1984. We knew each other for that. We all came together, you know, out of that violence, out of the ugliness, out of that racism that, you know, was attacking us every day. And that formed that Bright Dragons. Bright Dragons were formed to, you know, protect ourselves, man. I mean, we had gangster disciples, we had vice lords, we had Aryan Brotherhood. We were all, you know, being attacked or separated or having each other, you know, they manipulated where we attack each other. So, you know, that's what we formed the Black Dragons. Man, I remember getting the first manifesto. It came down from the lockup, you know, smuggled down, and, you know, we were putting that together. But that's what that was, man, to protect ourselves, you know. So we knew each other, you know, we associated, you know, and man, that day was like the icing on the cake, you know, so to speak. But not even, you know, cakes are sweet, and this was ugly. But that the beating of Lomar, you know, it was coming, you know, when he had got into an incident. I was there that day, and you know, I got him, the guards not to hurt him that day, but we went to lockup, and I went to check on him the next day as his lay advocate. That's when they told me I couldn't visit him, and I could tell that something was going to happen that day, but I had no idea it would be this. And then the days, midday, it was on, and you know, so, and he was one of the leaders too of, you know, of the Dragons, and part of being foreman that over the years, you know, he'd been a leader throughout the prison system, you know, and educating young brothers like myself, you know, and stuff like that. So, but when that day came, man, you know, it was just like, oh, okay, you know, and it was spontaneous, nothing planned here, but you know, we knew we had to do something, you know, and you know, they did it, man. They did it above and beyond what, you know, I you know, at the time, you know, I'm not gonna say, well, I know, you know, I think back now, how could I have did that? I don't know if I could have did that, you know, even though I was there, you know, I just wasn't in that position, you know. So, hey, man, I think back and I'm just, man, hey, I appreciate everybody and what they're doing, you know, and what little I can do, you know, just being here, man. They deserve, they must be free, you know. The punishment phase is over. This is you know, torture. This is straight torture. You know? I can go on and on. You know,
well, Jared, I don't know if you want to jump in or ask anything.
No, I did want to. I sort of wanted to ask if in case I missed it, or if anyone else might have missed it in the airing of the film. How did could you both, King, maybe start? How did you come to this story? How did this story of all that there could be make it to you? And then how did the connection here get begun, and the process of this film and all the support work? Could you just say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm the director of Focus Initiatives Ltd. and the Indianapolis chapter, and we're a prison reentry group. You know, we help people, men and women, coming out of those facilities, and you know, we help them get a good start on turning their lives around so they never enter that system again. And I discovered that group because they helped me. You know, I've been out for 3 years now, and I'm doing great. You know, so yeah, that's what we do. And then being with them, we had to communicate with people who are incarcerated, and through that, and through the work that they were already done and the relationships they already built, that's how I come to know about the story. And once I come to know about the story, and said how incredible this was, you know, I got my own cameras. You know, I was filming music videos and editing programs myself, you know. So I took it upon myself to grab these cameras and just started recording this footage everywhere I went. You know, Minka was gracious enough to let me come to his home and speak to him right in his office. And, you know, we had to tell this story, and we had to keep it as truthful and authentic as possible. And then I got to be blessed to talk to these men, John Cole and Christopher Trotter. I talked to them directly, and we became friends. And they told me about what was going on with them and the things that they had suffered. But I'm gonna say this real quick. What was so amazing to me is, man, these men are so intelligent and eloquent and powerful speakers, and they only speak life, and they have forgiven everyone. I mean, you've heard some of those stories about being in the hole for 20, 30 plus years. You hear about people going through insanity, you know, and never coming out the same. But these men being so determined in spirit and will, they have, not only do they have a sound mind, but they have the most beautiful minds that I've ever met in most human beings, period. You know, so it's just incredible of a story, and I knew it had to be told. And this is the way, this is the format, the media, to get this type of message out today. So I still want to encourage people to watch this. Please share it with everyone you know, so we can continue to expose the evil that takes place every day in this system in our name.
You know, I mean, I'm with you 100%. I mean, this story has to be told, and I hope everyone who's watching knows. You can go to the YouTube here at Breakthrough News, also Black Power Media. You'll be able to find the video, share it with everyone. And I hope you do. You know, Mr. Beck-Timbo, one thing I just want to ask you about it in this context, and I mean, I guess there's so many things I want to ask you about. I mean, what a story, but. You know, the fact, I mean, it just feels that what you all were living with, you know, day in and day out was unbelievable. I mean, the racism of these guards, I mean, everything you described about the, you know, the thickness of the batons they would use to beat you. I mean, I know for a lot of people, you know, we know and we hear about prisons and how, you know, beast-like they really are. But I think for a lot of people in the US, it's still unknown how torturous these institutions really are. And I was hoping you could just say a little something about that.
Oh yeah, this is this still happening today. You know, I'm in touch with people in the DOC. This still happening today. I work in addiction recovery. I work with people with justice involved coming out of the DOC, Department of Corrections. This stuff is still happening. This is the mentality. This is what they do. There's no it says in any other constitution it's based on reformation, not on vindictiveness. That's not true. You know, it's just civil. It's not true. You know, it is vindictive, and it is a white racist system. You know, white supremacist. You know, that's who runs it. You know, they have blacks in positions, but they're not running nothing. You know, I mean, we know this is happening all around the country. But, you know, back then, man, it was even, you know, this is the early 80s, you know, I went in at 79, you know, the early 80s, and it was even worse, you know, that day, you know, I remember the superintendent, after we had taken over the cell house and secured the guards in a safe place, you know, for their safety and ours, because, you know, something happens, you know, we did, you know, that's Pendleton had a reputation. They shoot. They have shot before, you know, I've been in a situation, shot into the dining room or whatever. But anyway, the superintendent was a black man, you know, Norman Owens, you know, but he didn't really run that prison. But he said, okay, Mika, I'm gonna turn on the phone for you, and you know, I want you to call me. I mean, you know, we can start talking about how to work this out. Now, okay, you know what? I called the black radio station here in Indianapolis. I said, hey, man, you know, they're going to kill us, man. So, you know, what? They didn't believe what was going on, you know. But then everybody knew the reputation of Pendleton, you know, even outside the walls. But even to this day, man, you know, that torture's taken. But look at it. Trotter and Cole, look at them. Balagoon and Eugene. Look at it. It's still happening. It's still happening, man. They still torturing them. They didn't kill nobody, man. Like you said, Trotter, I cut it. We saved lives from lives, possible lives, you know what I mean? But then at the same time, you know, the repercussions, man. You know, I knew it. You know, it was so quiet the next day. After, you know, it was over with, the cell house was locked down, the prison was locked down. It was so quiet. And I sit up in that cell, and I know everybody else did too. What's going to happen next? You know, what's going to happen? Well, we see it's been happening for the last almost 40 years now. You know, that's what happened. I grace of God or whatever, higher power, whatever it is, I'm sitting there and be able to talk to you. And man, it brings tears to my eyes. You know, I'm just grateful. You know, but then, you know, whatever y'all can do, whatever anybody can do, I'm so grateful for being involved. I stumbled up on this because I have people that keep contact Cole and Trotter over the years. I might not directly, but you know, I seen an event posted, a petition signing. I was like, I showed up. I said, hey man, I should be here. I was there. You know, so that's how me and King met. That's how we are. You know, we got involved, and then, you know, that's just a little that I can do. You know.
Right on. Here we are trying to play the role of that radio again. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great.
May I add one other thing real quick? Okay, just real quickly. One thing that the documentary truly brings out, and you see it clearly, that the prison commissioner receiving a felony because of how he conducted the prison. You saw documentation of the Sons of Light by other officers and members of staff who corroborated everything they were saying, that these racial organizations exist. You've seen the officer who actually started the prison riot. He went to prison. All this stuff is documented. All this stuff is evidence. All this stuff is in the files and in the records. And yet still, they refuse to give these men justice. You know, they have made their position very plain. That's why it is more than necessary for all of us to align together, because these things won't end. They're going to lock up our family members. They're going to lock up the next generations. And if we do nothing now, this will do nothing but perpetuate and become even worse and worse and worse. It's up to us. We give them license to do this, you know, and I'm at the end of my rope. This has to turn around now. And these brothers got to come home.
Well, we want to talk about what people can do, and I just want to say, Mr. Mikabek Timber, we really appreciate having you with us. Any final words you wanted to say before we let you go?
Yuhuru Sasa. That means freedom now.
Right on. Thank you so much for joining us, sir, and thank you so much for everything you've done. And we want to bring back, please. We want to bring back two Black now as well, and as we're transitioning, and we have Black with us here now. And Black, I don't want to bury the lead anymore. You know, for folks who are watching, who are wondering how to get engaged and what they should be or could be doing, what should they do?
Well, at the end there, you saw we just got it done. The Pendleton2.com, and that's Pendleton and then the number 2.com, not the word two. I'll buy that domain later, but it's Pendleton2.com. And from there, you know, you can get involved in various ways. You can write them. We have their addresses on there if you want to write them, and that is important because the more contact they have with the outside, when stuff like this starts floating around the documentary and more pressure gets put on them, it's important to put on the state, not the Pendleton 2. It's important that, you know, they know that there's support, that they're talking to people, that people are writing them, because they can't retaliate in the same way versus if, you know, no one's talking to them, you know. So we got to make sure we maintain contact. So that's just like kind of number one. There's petitions that can be signed. There's you fill out a form, so you don't even have to sign the entire petition. You fill out a Google form. This is all on the website. One goes to the governor for clemency. There's sentence modification that both of them are trying to, well, one of them is seeking sentence modification. The other one is a slightly different. There's some legalese differences there. One goes to the prosecutor of Madison County, Indiana, because that's where Pendleton is in Madison County. And then also, even though, you know, you may be watching this film online somewhere, our next phase is doing like community screenings so we can have more like face-to-face conversations with folks and do political education around that. So if you are a part of, you know, any community, an organization, a church, of any kind of entity, where like reach out to us through the website or through just the Pendleton2 at Gmail, and we can hook up a screening, so you can do that as well. Then also, you know, the committee itself can always use participants. You know, there's not that many of us who are active in doing things, so a lot of us get stretched thin sometimes. So we're always looking for more people who can come through, and we'll have an onboarding process. So that would be helpful as well. So those are just some of the things people can do. If you have other creative ideas, we're open to those. Like, as I always say, I just ask that you reach out to us, because we don't want people doing a bunch of stuff in our name that may not be what we actually need, or particularly what the Pendleton 2 actually need. So I would prefer, if you can, and we would prefer to, you know, reach out to us, run some things by us. It's not that we have to give you approval on everything, but we at least like to know some things are happening, because sometimes people just run out of the individual and it may or may not actually help the situation. So reach out to us, because we're the people who are actually in contact with the Pendleton 2, and they have given us our trust. So we want to respect that.
Absolutely. Definitely. And you can see the website there, Pendleton2.com. Hopefully everyone can see it. Yeah, Ken, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with Two Black, you know. Yeah, they've entrusted us with, commissioned us with this serious work, and we're going to try to do it to the best of our ability. But just like he said, we do get stretched thin, and you know, we've been doing this for a little while now, and we have some momentum going. So please, if anyone out there, even if you just have some ideas to share with us, we are open to discuss those with you. And, you know, we really ask that people do get involved.
Jared, any final thoughts you want to offer? I mean, I know we're all still processing it, so much there, but please.
No, I just want to congratulate the two brothers here who are joining us and to their broader networks. It's an honor to be able to support this in any way, to help out in in however I can. I know however BPM can. Roberto wants to help out clearly as well. So but again, congratulations on the film project. I definitely appreciate that message there to Black and King. Congratulations and thanks to the both of you for this work.
Mm-hmm. I also just want to note, and you can find this on some of our breakthrough social media, especially our Instagram at BT Newsroom. There's a fantastic comic that is also out that you can use to share and spread.
And
go ahead, Black.
King drew that. I just want to make
sure people know
that. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
Well, it's beautiful, and it was really powerful.
Yeah. And see that's exactly what I'm talking about. We all have different talents. Whatever your talent is, to draw, to write, to record, to communicate, to legal experience, whatever aspect of talent you have, this can be used. We have to work together. And once again, this is an open invitation to everybody to help us, because the state has an evil plan to make these brothers and their story die in prison. And if nobody does anything, that's exactly what's going to happen. So once again, you're employed to join us.
Pendleton2.com. If you're a supporter of Breakthrough News, if you're watching this, you follow us, share this, share the film, talk to people, do something, get involved. Let's put some bodies behind this. Make a donation if you can as well. Yeah, Black, go ahead.
You just said it. I was going to say the one thing I forgot to say was donations, because even this film, it was guerrilla filmmaking for those who know what that is, but it still costs some money. Some of those stock pictures and some things that we have to do, traveling, all these things cost money. So we're not doing this for profit. That's not our goal at all. But anything that helps sustain us while we do this, would definitely be helpful. So whatever you got, the links are in there. Like they're in the chat. They should be in the show notes on the documentary. Go to the website. The donation thing is there. Definitely give what you have. If you're watching this now or even later, please do that.
I just want to co-sign that quickly if I can, because it's not just the time and the cost into producing the film. It's the time and the cost that you're not putting into earning money elsewhere. So if we want people to do this kind of guerrilla media work, we need to support them so that they don't have to go and do whatever other things we always have to do to earn. So appreciate you on that as well.
Yeah.
If we all put in a little bit, we can get a lot out of it. So please donate, help, do whatever you can, share the film. The Pendleton 2, They Stood Up, new documentary out now about the Pendleton 2, Christopher Naeem Trotter, John Balagoon Cole, sentenced and persecuted for standing up for the lives of others. And we want to say rest in power as well to Lokmar Lincoln Love, who they stood up for, who recently passed. We saw in the film. The King Trill, Two Black, Jared Ball, thank you so much for joining us here and being a part of this and bringing this to my attention and making it possible for me to be here and to share this with our audience. Shout out to Black Power Media. Shout out to the Defense Committee to free the Pendleton 2. And in the immortal words of Dr. Jared Ball, do something. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.